Call the work session board meeting to order for October the 6th, 2022. Go straight into items of information, Dr. Spence.
We're going to go with Mr. Blackerby for the facilities update.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, quick update on some of our projects, and you feel free to ask about anything I don't cover. But as far as the GA gym addition goes, the punch list walkthrough was done this week, and those items are being addressed. I'm going to have a pretty comprehensive list of that being taken care of. The biggest outstanding item is still the gym floor. Not sure if you've been up to date on that, but the manufacturer of the gym floor dropped. They went out of business, so had to switch to another manufacturer, and that's in the works. October 27th is still the delivery date for the floor. When it does arrive, it has to sit in an acclimated and climatized environment for 2 weeks before it can be laid, and then so we're still looking at probably mid-November, Thanksgiving, before we have that gym floor in. But working with Mr. Tootin today, we're coming up with a plan to allow student access to the weight room area of the gym, so we can, or the new addition, so we can at least start using that hallway and that part of the facility here in the coming weeks. And St. Simon's Elementary, two-story additions come along well. Primary focus right now is a lot of the interior finishes, tile work, painting, ceilings, and that type of stuff. Still are some concerns about the switchgear arrival time. We hope that by next Thursday we kind of have a little better information on that. I met with the contractors this week, and they're trying to push the suppliers to get that here. But we are working on some contingency plans if that doesn't work out. And as far as our other renovation projects go, we'll talk about a proposal here in just a minute. But Oglethorpe, Golden Isles, Needwood, still doing a few final touches. Stage front is installing some equipment in the gyms at the elementary schools over this long weekend, and other than that, it's waiting till we remodel the kitchens next summer after that. So, any questions about any of the projects? Anything you want me to touch on?
On the annex, did you mention that?
The annex. Actually, I talked with Tyson Construction yesterday, and got with Mr. Blackstone to make sure we had his needs met. But they're going to start excavating underneath the building. They have to remove some dirt to do the work. But it has to be hand done. They have to hand excavate it, and they're trying to mobilize their crew on Monday, and we'll probably be doing that all of next week. We'll be removing that.
Is that just on that first room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, moving to the good report. I do not see the attachments. I don't know if you have a paper copy of it, but on the colored front of page 6. Page 6 of 9 has the receipts for this month, which was at a little over $2.8 million, down from the 3.2 last month. But we are coming out of the major tourist time, so we expected to drop. As you can see, the year before it dropped at about the same rate as it did this year. And within that, there are summaries of some of the other projects, if I didn't touch on that.
Any questions about the good report?
You want to go on down to
Yeah, we have a couple of change orders.
3C.
And, yeah. Which it doesn't look like the, is it there? That's it. We actually have 2 change orders for St. Simon's because that project, as you know, is broken up into multiple phases. We're right now currently working in Phase 3, about to start Phase 4. This change order is in reference to Phase 1, which was the initial site work that we did for the, primarily around where the 2-story building is being built. This is a credit back to us for $4,000. The $4,000 was earmarked in the original budget for tree removal, but the trees that this was in reference to are over behind what's the existing kitchen, and they will eventually be removed, but it was not impacting this project at this time, and there was no reason to remove them at this time, so we're going to move that to Phase 4 or a later phase of the project once we actually need those trees removed. There was just not a reason to do it right now. So that's a credit back.
If you want to go to 3D.
Needwood and Oglethorpe, as part of their renovations, the kitchens will be remodeled, very similar to what we did at Golden Isles, but we've gone ahead and done Golden Isles, but these will be done next summer. In addition to that, St. Simon's will be getting a new kitchen, which is right where the tree is at, but in that area. But they'll be getting new kitchen in, I guess, Phase 4, Mr. Tootin? The kitchen works in Phase 4, which we hope to have the proposal for here next month or in December. But as part of that, we need to go ahead and purchase the kitchen equipment because what we've learned is with the kitchen equipment, there's a long lead time, so we want to go ahead and purchase that now and not go through the contractor. That also saves us on sales tax, because if we buy it ourselves, we don't pay the sales tax on it. If we buy it with the contractor, they have to pay the sales tax, which eventually gets passed back on to us anyway. But as far as the proposals go, we received quotes from 4 different suppliers, and we used a rubric to select the winning supplier, which is Mobile Fixture, at the total cost of $1.8 million, $1.891. And that is not, as you see, not the lowest price. Norvell was actually a little lower, but we carefully checked, and with the help of Ms. Daniel and her staff, we carefully checked references because in our last 2 kitchen equipment purchases, and actually my last 3 before I got here, suppliers were not real reliable in some cases and did not perform very well in their installation. Mobile Fixtures references all checked out, and we've got really good feedback on them. So they were rated higher in the similar experience category, and also the record of scheduled performance. So they are the recommended supplier for this project.
3E.
This is a Phase 3 St. Simon's change order. Just as a reminder, Phase 1 was the site work, and Phase 2 was essentially concrete and steel for the vertical construction. Phase 3 was everything else associated with the 2-story building, all the interiors of the building, the brick, the roof, all the mechanical and electrical. This work could be done in Phase 4, but it makes more sense for us, as we've gotten through the planning process, makes more sense to do it now. So we're asking for a change order to add this additional cost, which again would be in Phase 4 if we waited. But we need to go ahead and do it now, because if we wait till Phase 4, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to disturb instruction if we've moved into that building, and it's also, this is essential to get water runoff off of the building into the retention pond area that's being built, rather than running onto the neighbor's property. So we were trying to control that as well. So we're asking for a $180,000 increase on the change order. The actual cost of this is a little over $250,000, I believe, but we have $168,000 still left in contingency that we haven't spent off of the original sum. So we'll use the 168 plus the 180. And this 180, because we still have a few items that aren't priced completely out yet, one of them being a well that needs to be installed and some piping associated with that. And we don't have the final cost on that, but we have an estimate in there for that.
Any questions for Mr. Blackerby? Thank you, sir. Ms. Haywood, discipline update.
Good evening.
Evening.
Hope everyone is doing well. Tonight, we'd like to share with you a discipline summary. We wanted to make sure we were able to compare apples to apples. So you'll see FY20. This is from the first day of school through September 30 of those years. So 1920, which was our pre-normal year, pre-COVID. Then you've got FY21, FY22, we were still in the midst of COVID, and then FY23 is our current year. And so you'll see there are some similarities with regard to violations. This report is based on the number of students. So it's not the number of incidents, but it's the number of students who've been responsible and who've violated the student code of conduct in each of these areas. Just say we've seen some increase in physical responses, aggressive behavior, and you'll see that slightly above what we were pre-COVID. But I know our schools are working really hard to make sure that those things are mitigated. We've got some schools that have implemented changes within transitions so that they can eliminate opportunities for things to happen in their schools. So our schools are being very responsive with regard to their discipline. May I answer any questions for you on the report? You'll find on your individual seat I gave you each school.
Are we back to doing our drug testing with our drug testing policy and all that? Yeah.
We're about to. The hospital's about to start. The hospital was the holdup.
Okay.
We're about to start doing that.
The line item, you have bullying.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it a certain degree of bullying, or is it first time, or?
We didn't break it out. Yes, ma'am. We didn't break it out. Level 1 is 1, level 2 is 2, and level 3 is 3, because based on Georgia law, if a student is responsible for bullying 3 times in 1 year, then they have to be reassigned to an alternative program. But that's the collective number on the report that's currently showing. We can certainly break it out if you'd like to see if the number based on levels. We can also do that as well as a follow-up.
So number 36 on the list is repeated offenses.
Correct.
That's the number of students that have had more than one referral? Is that what that is?
That's 3 students. Well, for this year, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
They're 10.
10.
Yes,
that have
ma'am,
had
10
more than
across
one.
the district.
No.
We-
No, it's if a teacher says,
Oh.
don't do this, and they do it, and don't do this again, and they do it, and don't do this again.
thought you were asking
6 or
me.
7 chances,
Okay.
then they write them up. That's one
So
of the
that's
things.
a different category.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
I apologize. I thought you were asking me about the number of students.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. May I answer any other questions that you may have relative to this
I'm glad to
report?
see 44 0. Line 44,
Uh-huh.
I'm glad to see there's no incidents.
You got just 4.
There are 4.
Last year there wasn't
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am, on the
last
back.
year. Oh, the back?
If you look at the report
You
that
have to
was
flip it
included
I
on
apologize. Okay,
the
we have 4.
attachment,
Okay.
if you look at the
Flip it over.
attachment, it'll show you the collective number. So there have been 4 of those across the district this year.
On paper, computers all in one.
In the FY23 column?
I see.
Yes, ma'am.
So is the next thing you're going to present kind of a help and
Yes, ma'am, this will be a good
issue that we
segue.
have here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Ms. Haywood?
Have we, this may be a question for the back, have we finished the investigation into the Brunswick Glynn Academy fight or whatever?
Still ongoing. We have 2
Okay.
students that we have that
Okay.
are coming to tribunal, and there were 2 adults too that were
Okay.
arrested. So, do we have more students now?
Not yet. Those are the only numbers that we've been able to identify.
That's in reference to the Brunswick Glen Academy game?
Yes, ma'am.
I heard there was also a student that was no longer a student of ours that was involved in it as well.
That's correct.
Are we working, I guess, with the city or whoever we need to on that? I'm assuming we are.
Yeah,
Yes.
Because that'd be outside of, I mean, it's still on our property, but I guess we'd have to go,
we can still.
we could still arrest
we can
on
still
this.
press
right,
charges.
That's exactly right.
Gotcha.
Any additional questions about the discipline summary? Okay. Well, the second item, Dr. Spence, if I may.
Go ahead.
The second item, we wanted to give you an update on some of the interventions that we've added to our district. As you all know, we typically utilize universal screenings for academics, but we have not been doing that for behavior. And the intent of this is to intervene early, to be more preventative in how we can respond to behaviors early on. And so if you'll go to the next slide for me. Just to give you some information about what a behavior screener is, when you're thinking about the multi-tier systems of support, you have to have some baseline. And so we're wanting to capture a baseline for our students and then be able to respond to those students who may be falling beyond Tier 1. Assesses a wide variety of different behavioral challenges and strengths, and the screener will be given electronically, and it takes approximately 5 minutes. We're looking at implementing this for grades K through 8. So this is just, again, another way for us to try to be more proactive and preventative in some of the behavior challenges that we're seeing, and if we can catch them early on. And this will help us also with some of the data points when we start thinking about students for Bright Beginnings as well. This is a parent opt-out initiative. Based on law, we have to give parents the opportunity to say that they do not want their children to participate, so our schools will be prepared with a letter that will go home to parents. And if you'll go to the next slide, we'll have 2 screening windows, one that's coming up on the 24th through the 11th of, or the 10th, November 10th, because the 11th is holiday. And then the second screening will be March 13th through the 31st. And as I mentioned, opt-out letters and information regarding these will be sent out, disseminated to parents from schools. And again, we'll use the results of these screenings to assist us in identifying interventions that we can use with students to address some of the behavior challenges that we're seeing.
So, I'm glad son he's not here right now because, I mean, you know, are we going to rework PBIS or anything like that? Because we've been doing it for years and the numbers aren't getting a whole lot better than I can tell, you know? And then
Yes, sir.
the second question is, what does this cost, if anything? And then thirdly, I know you can opt out, but let's say I've got an 8th grader that's never been tested, never been in trouble. You're going to put him through a screening for behavior issues?
Well, the parent can opt out if they choose for their children not to participate.
But we have data that shows this kid's a problem. You know, why are we putting them through a screening process? We've got to get back to basics and being tough on discipline instead of giving them a lollipop and sending them back to class. This is not a problem with you, but we've done that. We did last year. We do it all the time. You know, it's, I mean, we more programs we're doing. Y'all, we've got the data. We've got teachers in the classroom. We've got principals we're paying, you know, 6 figures to. We've got counselors. We've got everything in place, and now we're going to screen kids that, I mean, I've really got a personal problem. I'll probably opt out of it, but if you're going to screen my child who's never been in trouble before, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
I was understanding that you were screening the students who may have an underlying issue that has not been identified.
And sometimes you'll have situations like that. You may not have students that may be misbehaving, but there may be some internal factors or challenges that they may not be articulating that we could prevent any things from happening later on as a result of that. So our intent was to utilize this as another data point as a part of our multi-tiered systems of support. We do universal screenings for academics, and so we thought it would be best if we want to truly create a robust MTSS system to also universally screen for behavior.
And the behavior screener doesn't just it doesn't just look for the behaviors that related to
Obvious.
discipline. It's behaviors that are related to emotional and social trauma as well. So if a student is cutting, there may be a question like, I thought about cutting myself, or I thought about self-harm.
I understand that.
And so it'll give us an opportunity to counsel those students and intervene with some counseling services or therapeutic services.
So where is this being used, and where are the results? Why are we pitching this? So, I mean, where are the results shown that, like PBIS, the numbers aren't going down? So where are the results to show this helps us identify it and helps us help those kids? Because I feel like you probably got, maybe not pre-K, first and second grade, but you've got kids identified so far that are discipline issues or might have social emotional issues. And so what are we doing for them right now that's not working?
One of the things, Mr. Halsey, when you think about discipline, we are being reactive by responding to once the child breaks.
But we're
the-
really not, though. So I'm not trying to be argumentative, but we've got PBIS, we put them through all these programs, and we have mentors and counselors and everything else. I mean, you always have to react to discipline. It's always going to be a thing, right? I mean, you're always going to have to react to somebody, and there's always a chance that a child who's never gotten in a fight before will be pushed and get in a fight. That's always going to be a reaction, but, I mean, we're just putting more, and this is the first I've heard of this, and I'm sorry I'm throwing out so many
That was
questions,
why
but I
we
just.
brought it to you, so that we could make you aware.
I mean, when is it going to get better? I mean, I don't want us to ever shy away from putting the true numbers out there, because if we've got 24 fights at a school, you understand why, and let's see what we can do to fix it. But, I mean, screening a kid, I don't know if that's going to necessarily help.
So this be more proactive, trying to identify a situation or behavior prior to it becoming
Yes,
an
ma'am.
issue.
Again,
Yes.
what schools are using and what data is out there to prove this helps identify it, and their numbers have decreased by 20% fights, or, 30% fewer kids think about cutting themselves, or whatever the case might be.
We've
And how
stud-
much does it cost?
We've studied districts that have implemented this same screener. This actually is also another screener that we use later on when we're looking at evaluation. This is a brief version of it. Muskogee County is one of the districts that we modeled some of these interventions by. Also, Atlanta Public Schools. We tried to find a school district in the south, one in the north, that are implementing this. And there are a number of districts that are moving in this direction. Again, when you're thinking about trying to be proactive and preventative in how we address some of the challenges with our kids, you're going to screen for it. It's just like, how do you identify if a student has a learning disability? You're going to screen to see where are those areas that you would address. That's what we do with students that have gaps with reading or with mathematics. We're just trying to use this same system for behavior. And the screeners were about $18,000. And they're just, we keep those licenses and they don't expire, so.
Gotcha. So we're keeping PBIS and all the things that aren't really affecting our fights and everything else right now?
Well, PBIS is again a framework, and our schools have
I
done a
know
lot
we're required to
of.
have something, I mean, from the state, I mean, get that part, we've got to do something, but I've always been frustrated by the fact that we should be fair, firm, and consistent in discipline, and that's still not always happening, I think, and that's part of our problem. You can screen all you want to, you can have PBIS if you want to, but if you're not being firm with kids and their parents and holding people accountable, then this is never going to work. But that's just my opinion. I'm not a counselor or a screener, but that's just my thought.
Well, I feel like we've done a really good job of providing firm, fair, and consistent discipline in our
But
district.
like Jane Macon on here, I mean, they've always, and I'm picking on Jane Macon, but, a few years ago, they were having fights all the time. And it seems to be a consistent issue there. So what are we doing? Let's just, talk about Jane Macon. What are we doing at these particular schools? And how is screening a kid going to help him not get in his third or fourth fight of the year? You know what I mean? We've got New Horizons, we've got all these academies and everything else. But again, we're piling on more things that, and it's not a lot of money. Don't get me wrong with the amount of money we've spent here lately, but it's just another layer. And I don't know, and again, I can opt out, I agree with, I don't know if I want my child's results being out there, if that's what we're gonna do, if we're gonna hold on to those results, and who's gonna look at them, who's
It
gonna
would
be
only
responsible for
viewed by the
administering this.
school- It would only be viewed by the school's core team, MTSS
Right.
team, and leadership team. And they
Okay.
would use that along with other points of information to identify and be more prescriptive in how they respond to student needs, whether it be academic or behaviorally.
We're hoping that it gets us to it puts us at a place where we can address some of the mental health concerns we had. If a student is thinking about being aggressive, a student is thinking about being physical, a student is thinking about harming himself or someone else, then we have an opportunity really truly to get some counseling and talk to and potentially use a mentor. So it really is an effort to be proactive, but and be responsive to what we're seeing. One of the things that I think we consistently sit with is we do feel like there's always more we can do, and so you're searching for how you can really kind of mitigate what's happening in schools. And if we did try to identify and really have a conversation and start doing some healing circles and some small group counseling with kids, maybe we could then get them to talk out and mediate and not be so confrontational in these schools. But until we know what they're thinking, how they're feeling, we really can't.
But don't you already do that some with PBIS? Don't you already have kids identified that are in that program or that system or whatever you want to call it?
PBIS is definitely different in that it's more set up to, I hate to say this, but it's definitely set up to celebrate great behaviors and highlight the right way to do things. It's almost like you got this process for penalizing kids when they're not doing what they're supposed to, and then you got this process that's set up to highlight how you're supposed to behave and what's appropriate behavior. And when students do that consistently, then there's rewards for that. I do think that it does get misused sometimes, where you get the kid with the lollipop who got rewarded because he was one day doing what he was supposed to do. But outside of that, I think collectively it is a positive thing because it reinforces that the positive behaviors that students should display in schools. So it's kind of separate, for sure. I mean, we really want this information, if parents will opt in, to really try to leverage the supports that we've partnered with outside of our district, because we can't do therapeutic services, but we do have agencies willing to partner with us, and we need that information to be able to even refer.
I mean, Dr. Spence, you were at Jane Macon for long. What's the problem at Jane? Just pick an example. What's the problem with some of the fighting that doesn't seem to be curbing itself at all? And again, it's not about Dr. Facine or anybody else out there. No, they work very hard. I think they're all great. But, what are we doing some places that we're not doing at others that?
Well, I mean, Jane Macon is a large middle school.
Right.
In terms of numbers. I would say that it's probably always been one of the schools that had the most fights, even when I was there, simply because of the different types of students that go there.
I mean, I shouldn't really do. I mean, Risley's 2 behind them, and Glen Middle's not far behind them either. So.
Yeah. And when you see those numbers, when you see the number 24, that means there were 24 students, so there were 12
correct.
fights.
Not 24 fights.
So there were only that's 24 students. So there is an increase. We've seen an increase, but I don't think it's just the Glynn County school system.
No, I think it's.
Understand that schools are a microcosm of the community we live in, and we're seeing this in our community also.
I don't disagree with you.
And so,
I mean,
people expect schools to raise their children, and that's hard to do. It's not something we can do. And so instead of being reactive, we're trying to be as proactive as possible. We have a way of screening students academically, and we're getting pretty good at that. We need to find a way to screen students behaviorally, because whenever we see a student, we see they have trouble with academics, well, we're just guessing behavior. And yes, if they get written up, and they start getting written up many times, then we do see that. But we'd like to catch it before we see that.
and I don't want to harp on certain examples, but let's take last year, for instance. If a child just straight out cusses a teacher out, F this, B that, everything else, they go to instant suspension for the rest of that day, and they're back in the classroom the next day. How does how is screening going to help that? That is identified
That happened.
as a.
That did happen.
It's happened a few
on
times.
One occasion, yeah.
Yeah.
But I know the situation. But we have made it very clear that we're not going to allow that to happen.
Okay.
And so,
We say that though, and then
right.
I
understand.
There it goes. So,
we also have 1,100 teachers, and so we try to keep
I
that
agree.
around.
I mean, it's a big corporation. I get it. We got lots of employees and lots of little ancillary employees that we have to deal with. I understand that, but
One thing to remember about these numbers that you're seeing is 3 years ago, when I took over as superintendent 2.5 years ago, we had, what were they called, Terry?
Tracking forms.
And they were tracking forms that teachers
Right.
would write the kid up, but it didn't go in the computer, so we didn't have any data. And then I found out that nothing was happening to many of these tracking forms, and so we said, we're not going to do tracking forms. We're going to put it into the computer, and we're going to deal with it. And so we're not trying to hide the numbers. We're not
that's
trying
how they
to
were
make
fudging the numbers. I mean, it's just called. I mean, that's what was
Because
happening.
we can't truly make a difference until we truly see what our numbers are.
I agree.
And that's what we're trying to do right now, is we're truly trying to see what our numbers are. And so,
Also, look
All right.
at this sheet and being proactive, the students who retaliated against the faculty, they were elementary students. So that let me know something triggered them at that age. I mean, an elementary student, I don't think any student should retaliate against an adult, but when you see misbehaving to the point that it's listed as violent toward an administrator in the elementary school, that's something to look at. So I think it would be helpful if we could figure out what triggered this behavior or this misbehavior.
And are those 4 students at our New Horizons program now, or are they still at their home school?
Some of them would be at Bright Beginnings.
Bright Beginnings, sorry.
And then
At the
some-
alternative school.
Some
That's what I
may
mean,
be
yeah.
at alternative school.
Right.
If they have attacked the teacher, they are not at
Right,
that
I
school.
mean, but they're elementary students on this report, so
We have
that's.
I know,
elementary
that's
students
why
at
I'm asking the
alternative
question.
school, too.
Right, but I'm saying, hopefully the screening will nip it in the bud at an earlier age.
That's our
Maybe we
intent.
have a longer time to work with them, instead when they get teenagers, smelling themselves.
And that's
in
one
the
thing
mom
we've
says.
tried to do at the elementary level is truly try to come in and, number one, provide professional learning for our administrators so that they are well-versed in appropriate consequences for behaviors that students may give off. I don't disagree that some of the behaviors in elementary school that were tracked on tracking forms shouldn't have been on a tracking form. They should have been on a behavior referral, and there should have been a more serious consequence than what was assigned. I find that still, when I have to go back and look at a child's behavior history, I find that still in behavior tracking forms. Why was this on a tracking form? This is a referral, this is a referral, this is a referral. So definitely, we are on the right track to tracking every one of our incidences in elementary school, as well as holding students accountable for their actions with the right consequence, not
Yeah.
a slap on the wrist kind of consequence.
So what does the screening look like to the student, and is it geared towards their age group?
Yes, ma'am. They're age-appropriate questions like, I like school. I like it when I can go outside. When I'm upset, I have a friend to talk to. I have an adult I can talk to. It's those types of questions.
Right, so just a
And-
multiple choice
Yes,
on a
ma'am.
computer?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
okay.
And it's age-appropriate for each student.
It's like 12 to 18 questions, I
Yes,
think.
12 to 18 questions. And they'll do it on the Chromebook, and like I said, it's 5 minutes to administer at most.
Who would do this? I'm sorry. Who would administer it? Your counselors,
It
or
would
would it be
be
your
done
teachers?
in the homeroom, and then from there, that data would be disaggregated with the leadership team at the
So they would
schools.
do it before any incident or anything like that? You'd go ahead and do this for the whole student body, except for the ones that opt out? So there's
Yes.
basically a baseline of this, and then y'all can look at it?
It's a
or
baseline,
somebody can
that's
look at it and
exactly right.
identify certain characteristics. That way, if there is a discipline issue, you can go back and reflect on this, I guess, and try to.
Absolutely.
Same thing we do with our MAP data. When we give a MAP universal, it's a universal screener, it's given to every student. So then we look at the academic data and we pick out students that we feel could benefit from different types of services and different types of interventions. We would do the same for behavior. That's one thing our teachers asked for last year when we were visiting schools, was help with behavior. And our MTSS pyramid, our academic side is very strong, as Dr. Spence said, but our behavior side was weak. We didn't have interventions for behavior. We didn't have Bright Beginnings. We didn't have, the things that we're trying to put in place now. So we're just trying to beef up that side.
Going back to consequences, Mr. Hulsey, probably the number one complaint I get from parents is that we're being too hard with our consequences. That's probably the number one
That is the
question.
number
That's probably the
one.
number one complaint I
And
get.
I don't disagree with you, but this is coming from a parent whose wife, would turn on kids in if they did
Right.
something wrong, you know what I'm
I
saying?
understand.
So, if somebody calls me about that, I don't think we've ever not supported y'all when they said, be tough on discipline. And I've gotten the calls, and the kids have been suspended for this, and you get 20 calls, they shouldn't have done it. At the end of the day, it's about personal responsibility, no matter who it is, and that's the problem. We have to have good administrators in place that'll be tough on it and be consistent, and that's the big thing. And so, Ms. Miller, I feel like all we do is intervention sometimes, which is great. We've done it for a long time. You have to do that, but golly, I wonder how many kids are like in 6th or 7th grade can take this screening and cheat it. You know what I'm saying? Like if you take, pick out one of your worst, offenders at whatever school and see what his or her scores come out as. Are they a model student? But their record shows different. I wonder if that's part of our analysis of this program. You know what I mean?
Well, just like with any type
Or
of...
somebody's never been in trouble where shows up as,
Just like with any assessment, there are going to be some that they make Christmas tree, and the system has a way of being able to capture those that are outside, that are anomalies, outside of the range of what you would expect, just like with assessments, standardized assessments.
Gotcha.
Any other questions for Ms. Haywood?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Weiss. Mr. Weiss is our new CEO at the Career Academy.
I want to thank everybody for having me today, and
Welcome.
I was driving in this morning and heard on the radio that I was supposed to come share my my vision for GICA, which is the first time I've ever had a public announcement of what I was supposed to do that day. So I guess I better get used to
Welcome
it.
to
but-
Glynn County.
Yeah. But it's been good. You know, I've been there for 10 days, 9 days now, and I think we've got a real gym in GICA. But I think it's just been kind of pushed off to the side for a little while, and you know, we've struggled with leadership over the past couple of years, and hopefully that has been solved at this point. We've got really great faculty out there that really care, and you know, you look at, you know, a lot of them are tradesmen and stuff. They could go make a lot of money elsewhere doing a lot of things, but they're there teaching those kids, and they've got a lot of great knowledge to pass on to the kids, and I think it's going to be really good. I think my vision in the beginning here, in my first 30 days, I promised I would just listen and walk around and talk, and so I've talked to a lot of the faculty, walk around the halls, listen to the students and their interactions, and you know, we need to get out and tell the story of what GICA is. It's not a trade school. You know, I think people don't really know sometimes what GICA is. It's a skills school or a workforce development institution. I mean, we're here to create the next group of workers for this community. And so I think we have some real opportunities here, and over the next several years we'll work on enrollment and programming and getting out and talking to the community and finding out what they need and what they want. And we've got some great programs now, but I want to see some other things that I think are important for us to add. So we'll be doing that. You know, this is one of those hyphenated jobs, and so I'm the CEO of the Golden Isles College and Career Academy, but I'm also workforce strategy leader for the Golden Isles strategic something plan, strategic development plan. It's a long title, doesn't fit on a card very well. But I'll be out in the community working with our employers and all of our educational institutions to try and make those connections between what's going on, what we need in the community educationally, and what the workforce needs, what the employers need. You know, workforce development, economic development are intertwined, and you can't have one without the other. And so we've got a lot of great opportunities here with all of our institutions, College Coast of Georgia, Coastal Pines, the school system here in GICA, to provide the type of workers that we need in all levels across the community. So look forward to working with everybody, and I would invite everybody. I'd love to have some sit-downs with y'all if you want. Welcome to come see me at GICA. I can walk you around. I get lost still, but you know, I'll have Dr. Devin Hart show me around and show y'all around too. But come out and see what we've got going on now, and then give us some time and come back and see what we'll have going on in another year or two.
One thing I've noticed when I've been out there is the students that are there are generally passionate about what they're doing. They're there because they want to be there. You know, not to say that they don't want to be in a math class or a science class too, but overall, the general population there just shows that passion. And I think sometimes, like you said, it's marketed a little bit as a trade school, but really for anybody that has an interest or maybe wants to develop a hobby or something, and some of this type of stuff that they could do on the side or do for themselves, it's really just a great way to go try something out. You know, if you like it, you know, maybe you move forward. If not, you've gained a skill that you can use. So it's not just to set them up for that career. And I think sometimes when we put that spin on it, it drives the children away from it that think, well, I'm not going straight into a career, so that's not the place for me. And I think it's a little bit of a just misconception.
I can see that, and you know, the tagline is "Ignite the Spark," and that's what we're there to do. Is just to start getting them thinking about a career. You know, it's hard in eighth grade to say what you're going to do for the rest of your life, right?
Sure.
And I worked with college students for the past 10 years, and they don't know either. And you know,
Some adults
well,
don't
4 weeks
either.
ago I didn't know either. So I mean, it's, you know, it's just how it is. But you know, you need to start having them start to think about it and look at it. And, I think providing some relevance to what's going on in their English class or their history class or their math class through these pathways is important to help them be more successful as a student. And I think retention, progression, graduation rates will continue to increase with students who have gone through the pathways and can see that there's a point behind this English class or this history class. So I think that's going to be an important piece as well, is making that connection.
Right, and I think the counselors, and I know that they have a lot on their plate, but one of the things when they're helping children kind of decide what courses they take, it might be just as simple as a little bit more of an explanation about what that is, or, because I know they get the pink sheet or whatever all the courses are shown on, but sometimes they just scan over it and think, I don't want to do that. I don't want. So, maybe it starts there, or I don't know where it starts, but.
I would agree with that. I think we've got to do a little better job with the 8th graders and moving them into the particular pathways and making sure that we're lining them up correctly. I think there's a lot of things that play into that, and space issues and number of seats that we have in each classroom, and not every kid can go into the pre-vet program, which is what 90% of them probably want to do. But getting them into either the primary or their secondary choices, and making sure that they're in the choices that they want to be in, and not just put in there because we really weren't sure. They didn't know what they wanted to do, and so we need to look at that and see how we can find out what their interests are, what their passions are.
We don't really have a major recruitment issue at GICA. We have a retention issue at GICA. If you look at our courses, our introductory courses are full. It's going to the second and the third course.
Yeah.
And so definitely whatever that disconnect is, I'm eager for you to see and determine how we can keep them engaged. I don't know if it's the rigor of the course. I don't know if it's the lack of engagement. I don't know if it's because they have too much good work in that introductory and not enough hands-on relative to the pathway. But what I've seen the last year is that they go into those introductory courses. The registrars are scheduling them. It's the retention, getting them to stay. Then they opt out to come back to the base high school to do a different elective. They don't finish the pathway.
And some of that you can affect, but just in my history with college students too, is that I think it's 55% of college students, freshmen, will change their major at least once before they graduate. And so, but these are pathways, and that's kind of the point too, is for them to explore. They're not all going to complete, but if they don't complete the pathway they're on, we hope we could get them moved into another pathway. That would be, more in line with what they want. I mean, nobody at 14 years old, it's hard to know what you want to do, right? And so,
I think some of that may be attributable to scheduling issues too. Just
it is. It's a challenge.
proximity kind of triggers that. So,
Yeah.
Well, there's so many more other things that they can get involved in that it's, I like to call it a place for purpose, because when you go out there, normally you have a purpose, whether it's to find out what you don't want to do or find out what you do want to do. We need to get away, which I think we have over the last 8 years or whatnot, of just using it as a place for them to go. We've tried to evolve it into, like I said, a place for purpose. What do you want to do? Do you want to find out? Let's go find out what you don't want to do. You think you want to do this? Let's go test it. Like you said with the pathway. I think it'd be interesting to take the data and do, a quote unquote exit interview or whatnot with the kids that are not coming back, or not the retention situation. Why are you not coming back? Why are you not moving on? Is it because you don't like the class? Why did you like the class, but what did you not like about it? That type of thing, and see if we can maybe divert some attention in those areas that they think are important or whatnot. But also grab them and say, well, if you don't want to do this pathway, are you going to go to another pathway or whatnot? But then that may also, back to Ms. Sam's point, alert us of whether or not it is a scheduling conflict. They want to do something else, but now they can't or whatnot. Maybe we can. It's always been a type of an oblong object that we're trying to place in a square thing, so peg hole. But
well, I can tell you with the limited experience I've had in the past couple of weeks, but I can tell that if they're involved in an after-school activity, it makes going to GICA very, very difficult.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of times the upper level classes are in the second half of the day.
Right.
And is it third and fourth block? Right. Third and fourth block. So it'd be very hard if you're a football player to stay on and complete the pathway.
I mean, band or anything else is
Or
very
band
difficult. Like you said, any type of extracurricular afternoon situation, and that's kind of a downfall. But but it's not our fault because, I mean, you can't give everybody, everything. And like, to my point of having so many options, and we push the kids to be well-rounded and try different things and do different things and be engaged in different areas, those are one of the areas where you kind of have to be focused on, all right, this is what I want to do, and goal-oriented, like I said, with a purpose of I'm going out there to, maybe not stay on a career, but actually start the career path of where you want to go. And like you said, I mean, I know adults that don't even know where they're at right now. So I can understand that, but we've come a long way. And we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you taking your time and efforts to help us, keep the ship moving forward. But I would like to see, to Dr. Green's point of let's see if we can find out why we're not keeping people engaged or whatnot, rather than wasting those areas of, I'm glad they're not going into it the second go around when they know they're not interested in it. At least they're recognizing that and pulling out, but maybe we can get them involved into something else. But promoting it as a workforce development center is very, very positive. And as someone in the community and a business owner, we need that terribly. Not just as a business owner, I mean, you can go to anywhere and see that the labor force is almost non-existent.
Right.
So we really need to tune these kids into helping us in the future and helping themselves, because the sky's the limit right now as far as if you want to go work, you can work and you can make money if you just do what you say you're going to do and be there. But again, from us, from me, thank you for
No problem.
taking on this task, and hopefully you'll stay with us for a while and help us get things moving.
Appreciate it. And welcome all of y'all to come out and see what's going on out there, and come see it now and come and see it in about a year and a half, 2 years, and see what things we've changed out there.
Just one more comment. This may be impossible to fix, but I know of personal examples and other examples where you have students that come out there and try classes, like you said, and then come back to their base high school. And I think one of the reasons is there's such a drive. And I hate to use this term really, but for kids that know their college prep, right? They're out there and they try these classes. I mean, even my son that just graduated from Valdosta, he loved his auto mechanic class when he first got out there. But there's such a drive that, oh my gosh, if I want to get into Georgia, I got to have at least 12 AP classes. So I've got to go on that pathway. And that's the pathway. It's like, these are all the pathways, and AP is a pathway. So when you're choosing pathways, it's hard for certain kids that want to stay out there to do that. The classes aren't offered, whether it be, freshman English that we don't, that you don't offer out there, or an AP course. So that's a crazy problem to solve. But I think that's part of the issue where they want to have that knowledge and love it out there, but then there's such a drive and a push for this other pathway that you lose a lot of kids because of that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I would like to stay out there and complete another pathway. It's just too difficult.
Right. And I would say, I think the emphasis on AP and maybe a little bit overblown at some points.
Sure.
And I think, graduation rate, total number of students graduating from high school is leveled off or dipped significantly over the past several years. And so colleges are probably, we don't use SAT scores a lot anymore, ACT scores, because they need the enrollment. And so I think maybe sometimes the emphasis on these AP classes and things maybe not as much, if you want to go to UGA or Georgia Tech or something, might not need it quite as many as you need.
Sure.
And if you want to go to Georgia Tech and you want to do engineering, then we have the engineering pathway.
Right.
And then there's also some dual enrollment classes that could be taken through Coastal Pines that could help them move on to continue an engineering program or any pre-professional
So
program.
you need to go talk to all high school students tomorrow. You just need to go. We can't go tomorrow, I guess. Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Seals, E1.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
At the last work session, I was asked about giving a report on certification. And just a little bit of information, when we're talking about certification, it's important to know that Glynn County Schools is a strategic waiver school system. And within that, we make a contract with the Georgia Board of Education. And within that, one of the waivers we did ask for was for certification.
Sure.
It has helped us tremendously. It really has. And so that is one of the things that we did have some flexibility with as a part of our waiver to help waive some things that are set out in Georgia law. Next slide, please. And so I'll go through by grade bands, and you'll see this. You see the number of teachers at each school that are professional and provisional, and my categories didn't show up there, I'm sorry. Oh, it's at the top. Provisional, you'll see the number of provisional and professional. That's high school, Brunswick High School and Glynn Academy. Then at our middle schools, there. The numbers at our elementary schools. Programs, and those are our FACES, Leaps and Bounds, GLC, GICA, Morningstar. And this is the total number within our district in regards to provisional and professional. I have to say that we, and I know Dr. Green and Ms. Miller will agree with this as well, we have some phenomenal teachers who may not be fully certified yet, but I will tell you, they were born to teach. They just didn't go to college to do that. And many of them have been able to work through getting certified, and so that some of those people who start off as being provisional are now professional, and they've had those opportunities to work through that and hone their craft and do that. And so we're excited about that. Our professional learning department is integral in ensuring that those transitions happen and make sure that people are prepared for the classroom. Any questions about that report?
Thank you for putting together.
Mr. Griner.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have two sets of financials to get through tonight. Get back in time a little bit. We've closed out our fiscal year, which is June 30th, 22. So we'll take a look at the June financials. I'm just going to go to the summary real quick without pulling up the attachments. So our revenues for the year exceeded our expenditures by almost $591,000. This does include a $15.5 million transfer to our local capital projects fund. We had budgeted $5.5 million. We ended up, with another $10 million to try to keep somewhat close to that 15% of fund balance that the state requires. We're still in the 18.5 range. But that'll kind of dwindle down at certain points during the year, so we'll have to revisit it next year. Our revenues for the year, we did exceed about almost $6 million, 5.9. Most of that was in taxes. Chris, if you could pull up, now I'll get to the attachment, the June 22 financials, and just go to page 2. And if you don't mind, just leave it there. That'll be great. And we'll blow it up a little bit because I know I can't see that. So total revenues, over the budget balance, $5.9 million. Most of that in local taxes. That is not necessarily property taxes. That's our title ad valorem tax and our real estate transfer tax that we get a portion of as well. That's where the bulk of that is at. And then if you scroll down just a little bit on that page, Chris, you'll see our total expenditures. We actually were underspent almost $5.3 million. So if you add those two together, it's roughly about $11.2 million. That we ended up being under budget or over budget with revenues, under budget with expenditures. So on the expenditure side, a lot of that's in salaries and benefits. Again, as Mrs. Sills has mentioned, we didn't fill all our vacancies, especially if you look at transportation and other areas, so that's where the bulk of that is. A lot of it's in supplies and materials. I think, without doing a really deep dive into that, my cursory thing would be, with our CARES Act, we've been trying to spend that money before we run out of a timeline there, so we've shifted some stuff into the federal program that we may have thought we were going to spend out of the general fund, so I think that's where the bulk of those differences are coming in. And this is something, we'll monitor as we go through FY23 again as well. But overall, we had we would love to see expenditures, especially on the salary and benefit side, because that means we're fully staffed. We would like to see that number, definitely less than 5.3 million, because that's where the bulk of that is in our salary and benefits. And then I'll just mention where we ended up our fund balances for the funds we present on here. General fund, you'll see down at the very bottom. If you'll scroll just a little bit further down, Chris, thank you. Right, go back up just a little bit. There we go. Right there, the 29.3 million is where we ended up with the general fund. Our local capital projects fund now has 21.6 million in it. East Plus 3, keeping in mind with East Plus 3, that most of that money is budgeted, but we're at 29.6 million, and then East Plus 4, same thing as East Plus 3, 23.2 million as of the end of June. We don't foresee any major changes. Of course, the last step is finalizing our fiscal year is our audit, which is coming up from Malden and Jenkins. I don't think these numbers they shouldn't change at all. If they do, it'll be probably immaterial, but our audit's scheduled for the end of October, first part of November. So we've got that on the books. And And I'll go ahead, if you want me to, go ahead and do the August financials, and I can take questions on both of them. Is that fine? Or-
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So then we'll move forward in time to the August financials, and while they load, I'll go ahead and talk about them. Our year-to-date revenues were at 7.3% of budget, which is about where we were at this time last year. It's, yeah, if you could just pull that up, Chris, and go to page 2 on that again as well. It's still spinning. All right, we're just talking about them. Since y'all have them in front of you. Year-to-date revenues, 7.3% of budget. Year-to-date expenditures were at 10.9% of budget. This time of year, we should be about 16.7. So again, we're tracking behind. Again, we still have some vacancies that we're filling in there as well. So so again, you can see the 7.3 and then the 10.9. So again, we're in good shape. I look compared to last year, we're at about the same position we were in last year. Again, local taxes, we've collected about 1.7 million. We'll get the bulk of our tax money will start coming in. I think tax bills are due November 15th. So October, November are our biggest 2 months. So that number will jump up very, very high, to where we expect it to with the budget. And then our expenditures will start to catch up with that through the rest of the year. Our expenditures are more level. Our revenues, we get the bulk of it in 2 months. So, or 50% of our revenues come in 2 months. So from a cash flow perspective, we'll be very heavy, for several months, and it'll start to dwindle back down as the year continues, which is true of every school district. And we talked about sales tax collections. 3.2 for this report, which is what we actually received in August, and then 2.9 is what we received in September, which will be on the next report. The only budget amendment we had for August was related to the tax digest, as we mentioned during the millage rate hearings. The digest came in much higher than we anticipated, so once we reduced the millage rate down to 15.65 mils, the difference that we're adding to revenue is about $3.5 million, and that's the only budget amendment for August. So I know that was kind of a quick, so I'll be glad to answer any questions on either set. And then going forward, of course, next month we'll just have 1 month of financials for the rest of the year. It was just trying to get that. We don't like to do June until we get the year closed out, because we want to make sure we have some pretty definite numbers there.
So overall in decent shape? as far
Yes,
as
sir.
fund balance?
Very good shape, yes, sir.
Any question?
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Grimes.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Appreciate
Thank
it.
y'all,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
And last but not least, Ms. Daniel.
This is super simple. We want to surplus the serving line that's at the new board office. We won't need the serving line there, and so we're going to move the serving line that's at the Golden Isles that just remodeled to Greer, and they are at Golden Isles right now installing the brand new serving line. So we're just shifting around, keeping our best. So.
Is is anything in there usable?
Yes.
As far as even after you take the serving line out, is anything?
Well, we're using it for a practice cafeteria. She's using it for a training center.
It's
Yeah, I hate to
actually
see something go to,
No. We moved our oldest things there that are still valuable, and we're making it our test training kitchen. So we put some tables in there. We're going to use it for our orientation for new employees, our MIT training, serve safe training, and we will do, it'll be our test kitchen now, to test products that we put on our menu.
Awesome.
That'll be the taste test.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you got plenty of guinea pigs there, that's for certain.
Exactly.
Or you will, so.
We're working on that today.
Hey, as long as it's
tomorrow.
free, I'm sure he'll be in there eating it up.
And that's all I have.
I should have let you go first, Ms. Daniels, I'm sorry. Thank you. You good?
Yep. that's it.
Anybody got any questions or review, anything? A lot to take in. Thank y'all so much for presentations. Do we have
I got all three.
okay. I entertain a motion to go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
I make a motion that we go into executive session for land, legal, and personnel.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Gibbons. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Halsey. Any discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Miss Sam's had, her sons had a football game, so she took off of that. So it's unanimous, 4-0 at 5:59. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Motion by Mark.
We fixed it.
Davis. Second by Ms. Gibbons.
What do we start? Oh, adjournment, open session. I second the motion for open.
All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous at 6:55. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Same thing, I guess. Make a motion.
Motion by Ms. Gibbons,
Second.
second by Mr. Hull. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous at 6:55. Thank y'all.
Sweet, thank
Good
you
night.
all.